Train your mind to stop overthinking instantly. Written and published by Stoic Ranger. Introduction. Every single day, your brain throws a storm at you. What if I fail? What did they mean by that? Should I have said more? It never stops. You're not living your life. You're living in your head. You're stuck in mental reruns, reliving past conversations, rehearsing imaginary disasters, second-guessing decisions you haven't even made yet. And the worst part? 90% of what you're worrying about never even happens. It's wasted energy. It's self-inflicted stress. But what if I told you this? Overthinking is not your personality. It's a pattern, and patterns can be broken. You weren't born an overthinker. Somewhere along the way, your mind was trained to overanalyze. Now it's time to retrain it, to think clearly, act decisively, and finally, rest. Because overthinking is a trap disguised as preparation. It feels like you're solving problems, but you're really just circling them again and again. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to silence the storm inside your mind, how to stop looping thoughts, calm your nerves, and train your brain to work for you, not against you. Because peace is not a luxury, it's a mental skill. And once you master it, you become unstoppable. Chapter 1. The mental loop. Why your brain keeps repeating the same thoughts. Overthinking doesn't happen because something is wrong with you. It happens because your brain is trying to protect you. It's a survival habit rooted in fear. Your mind wants to keep you safe, so it scans the past and imagines the future, searching for threats, replaying situations, and reviewing every possible outcome, hoping to avoid pain, embarrassment, or failure. At first, it might seem helpful. You think you're preparing yourself. You believe that by going over everything again and again, you'll find the perfect solution. But the truth is, overthinking doesn't lead to clarity. It leads to confusion. It clouds your judgment. It drains your energy. It makes simple decisions feel overwhelming. You lose sleep. You replay the same conversations. You try to predict the future, control the uncontrollable, and fix things that haven't even gone wrong yet. This is what's known as a mental loop, a repetitive cycle of thoughts that go in circles but never lead anywhere. You feel like you're making progress, but in reality you're just spinning your wheels. Like a hamster running endlessly on its wheel, you're using all your energy without ever moving forward. And here's the problem. The more you try to think your way out of it, the deeper you fall into the trap. Overthinking feeds on itself. One worry turns into another, then another, until your entire day is consumed by thoughts you didn't invite and can't seem to shut off. But there's a way out. The key isn't to fight or suppress the thoughts. That only makes them louder. The key is to recognize the loop. Awareness breaks the cycle. When you catch yourself spiraling, pause and ask, what exactly am I trying to solve right now? If you can't answer that clearly, then you're not solving anything. You're just mentally spinning. That's your sign to stop. You must learn to separate useful thoughts from mental noise. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every worry is valid. Most of what runs through your head is background chatter, anxious, repetitive, and automatic. And once you see it for what it is, you can choose to let it go. Because peace begins the moment you stop trying to control every outcome and start trusting yourself to handle life, one step at a time. Chapter 2. The power of the present. Anchor yourself in this moment. Overthinking is the art of living anywhere but here. It's your mind dragging you into a future that hasn't happened yet, or pulling you backward into a past you can't change. You worry about things that might go wrong tomorrow, or you obsess over mistakes you made years ago. You replay conversations, relive regrets, and rehearse outcomes that may never even exist. But here's the truth. You cannot change the past, and you cannot live in the future. All you truly have, right now, is this moment. and this moment is never the problem. The present moment is quiet, still, neutral. It's your thoughts about it that create the chaos. The moment you step into the now, the noise fades, the anxiety weakens, the tension drops. But you must learn how to return to now, over and over again, until it becomes your new mental home. Your breath is the bridge. It's always with you. It's always happening now. That's why almost every mindfulness tradition, from Buddhism to Stoicism, teaches you to come back to the breath, because it anchors you to the present. When your mind starts spiraling, pause. Gently bring your attention to your breathing. Don't try to breathe differently. Just notice it. Feel the air as it enters your nose. Feel your chest rise and fall. Feel the ground beneath your feet or the seat beneath your body. These sensations are proof. You are here. You are alive. You are safe. The more you practice returning to the present, the easier it becomes to stay here. It's like training a wild animal. At first your mind will resist. It will pull you back to your fears and worries. That's okay. Don't get frustrated. Just return to now. Again and again. Patiently. Gently. Each time you do, you're building strength. You're teaching your mind that peace lives here, not in the endless chase for control. And here's the beautiful part. When you're anchored in the present, your problems shrink. Because most of your problems don't exist in this exact moment. They're imagined in the future or stuck in the past. When you come back to the now, you realize that right here, this breath, this second, nothing bad is happening. You're okay. You're safe. This doesn't mean you stop planning or thinking altogether. It means you stop being consumed by thoughts that don't serve you. You make space between stimulus and response. You act with intention, not impulse. And that space, that stillness, is where wisdom lives. It's where you reconnect with your true self, not the overthinking version of you that's afraid and restless, but the real you, the grounded you, the wise you, the calm you. So train yourself to return here often. Throughout the day, pause. Look around. Take a slow breath. Feel the sun on your skin. Listen to the sounds around you. Gently say to yourself, I am here. I am present. I am okay. This is not just a relaxation technique, it's a life practice. Because the more you live in the present, the more alive, clear, and powerful you become. Chapter 3. Replace thought with action. Movement is medicine. Overthinking is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it gets you nowhere. You sit still while your mind races in circles. You plan, analyze, reanalyze, then hesitate. You get stuck in the what-ifs. You wait for the perfect moment. You rehearse every scenario, trying to predict the outcome before you move. But the truth is this. Overthinking doesn't lead to action. It replaces it. You start believing that by thinking more, you're preparing, that you're making progress. But in reality, you're only deepening your hesitation. Because the longer you think, the more your doubts grow, the more your fears multiply, the more your confidence fades. You become trapped in a cycle where the decision gets harder the more you think about it. Here's the simple truth. The only way to silence an overactive mind is through movement. Your body is the key to calming your thoughts. When your mind is spinning, take action, any action. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't even have to be perfectly right. Just doing something small and intentional, breaks the mental fog and brings you back into reality. Let's say you're stuck overthinking a message you want to send. Instead of rewriting it 10 times in your head, write a rough version down. Get it out, then send it. Done. Or maybe you're worrying about a difficult conversation. Don't rehearse it 1,000 times. Pick a time, speak from the heart, and have it. Overthinking can't survive bold action. Even small movement is powerful. Go for a walk. Organize your space. Make the first phone call. Step into the unknown. Start. Because once you move, the fear shrinks. Once you act, the doubt fades. Once you begin, clarity replaces confusion. And here's the deeper truth. Action builds trust with yourself. Every time you move despite the fear, you teach your mind, I can handle this. You start proving to yourself that you don't need to have all the answers before you begin, that you are capable of figuring things out as you go, that progress doesn't come from perfection, it comes from momentum. Overthinking thrives on inaction. It lives in the gaps between thoughts and decisions. The longer you wait, the more power the thought gains over you. But the moment you act, even if you stumble, you interrupt the cycle. Think of action as medicine for your mind. When you feel anxious, don't just sit there and sink into the thought. Get up, do the next physical thing, clean something, breathe deeply, stretch your body, write down what you can control. Then do it. You don't need to fix everything today. You don't need to take massive leaps. You just need to move forward, not backward. One step is enough to shift your entire state. So the next time your thoughts begin to spin, don't ask, what should I think? Ask, what can I do right now? Then do it, even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable. Because that's how transformation begins, not in thought, but in motion. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 4, and I'll write it just as long and detailed. Chapter 4. Question the thought, not yourself. One of the most damaging habits of overthinking is that it makes you doubt yourself instead of doubting the thought. You hear a voice in your head saying, "You're not good enough." And instead of questioning that voice, you believe it, you accept it. Then you ask, why am I like this? What's wrong with me? But here's what you need to realize. Just because a thought shows up in your mind doesn't mean it's true. Your brain is like a radio. It picks up all kinds of frequencies: fear, doubt, insecurity, guilt, shame, regret. Not every signal deserves your attention. Some thoughts are wounds echoing from your past. Some are just anxiety trying to protect you in the wrong way. And some are just noise, random, meaningless static. But when you overthink, you fuse with every thought. You become the voice inside your head. You forget that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. This is where everything changes. Learn to question the thought, not yourself. When an anxious or negative idea appears, pause and ask, is this thought actually true? Do I have evidence for this, or am I just afraid? Would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, let it go. Let's say you think, they probably don't like me. Stop. Ask yourself, did they say that? Am I assuming based on fear? Could this be just a reflection of my own insecurity? You'll often find that the thought is built on assumptions, not facts. And when you realize that, you take your power back. You stop reacting. You stop spiraling. You stop sinking into a hole of self-blame and emotional paralysis. This practice of examining thoughts instead of absorbing them is the foundation of mental freedom. You become more objective, more calm, more aware. You stop drowning in your mind and start swimming through it, aware of the waves, but no longer pulled under. It's like looking at clouds in the sky. You don't panic when a dark one floats by. You know it'll pass. Your thoughts are the same, just weather. Some light, some dark, but all temporary. And if you want to go even deeper, ask, where did this thought come from? Was it planted by an experience, a comment from someone years ago, a fear that doesn't belong to you anymore? Because once you trace the root of a recurring thought, you can begin to break the chain. This doesn't mean ignoring your thoughts or pretending everything is fine. It means facing them with clarity, not fear. When you start observing instead of absorbing, your mind becomes your tool, not your trap. So next time a thought shows up that makes you feel small, anxious, or afraid, don't shrink. Stand tall and ask, is this real or just a reflex? Is this helping or hurting? Is this truth or just a fear wearing a mask? And once you see it clearly, you'll realize you don't have to believe everything your mind tells you. You can let it pass, just like a cloud. You can breathe through it, just like a storm. You are not the thought. You are the awareness beneath it. And in that awareness, there is peace. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 5, and I'll continue in the same powerful, easy-to-digest style. Chapter 5. Create a sacred mental shutdown ritual. In today's world, your mind is never allowed to rest. From the moment you wake up, you're bombarded. Notifications, news, emails, messages, endless scrolling, endless stimulation. And even when the world is quiet, your mind isn't. It keeps running. Did I forget something? Did I say the wrong thing? What if tomorrow goes wrong? It doesn't stop. Your brain is like a machine that's never turned off. And just like any machine, if it runs too long without rest, it breaks down. That's exactly what overthinking is. A sign that your mind is overloaded, overwhelmed, and under-recovered. Most people try to manage it by doing more, thinking harder, analyzing deeper, staying busy, but that only adds more fuel to the fire. What your mind really needs is space, stillness, a clear signal that says, it's time to shut down now, you've done enough today. That's why you must create what I call a sacred mental shutdown ritual, a daily moment where you deliberately, intentionally stop thinking. This isn't just about sleep. This is about creating a boundary between your inner world and your outer responsibilities. A ritual that tells your brain, you are safe now. You are allowed to rest. Here's how it works. 1. Choose a time each evening, then honor it like a sacred appointment. Maybe it's 8:30 p.m., maybe it's 9 p.m., whatever works for your life. But once that time comes, you stop engaging with anything that stimulates your brain. No more scrolling, no more deep conversations, no more planning tomorrow's tasks. That part of the day is done. 2. Transition into calm with intentional cues. Dim the lights, light a candle, play soft instrumental music, brew a warm cup of tea. Do something small but meaningful that tells your mind, we're entering the peace zone now. These repeated signals train your brain over time to associate the ritual with relaxation and safety. 3. Reflect, release, and reset. Take out a notebook or journal and write down 1 or 2 thoughts from the day. What are you grateful for? What's on your mind that you need to release? Get it out of your head and onto paper. Then gently remind yourself, it's okay to let go. Everything else can wait. 4. Disconnect from input. Put your phone away, not beside your pillow, away. Stop checking updates. Stop feeding your brain more stimulation. You can't expect peace if you're still plugged into chaos. 5. Breathe and be still. Even if just for 5 minutes, sit with your eyes closed. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Let your thoughts float by like clouds. No judgment, no control. Just observe. Just exist. This stillness is where your nervous system resets and your mind begins to heal. This ritual doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be consistent. Because every time you repeat it, you're rewiring your brain for peace. You're showing your subconscious, overthinking is not required. I am safe to let go. I am allowed to rest. Without a shutdown ritual, your mind stays in on mode all night. That's why you lie in bed staring at the ceiling. That's why you replay the same scenario 100 times. That's why you wake up tired, even after 8 hours of sleep. But with a shutdown ritual, your mind has a resting place, a closing chapter, a signal that says, you did your best today. You don't need to think anymore. You're allowed to just be. This small daily practice can change your entire mental life. because peace isn't found at the end of a to-do list. It's created by boundaries. So, protect your mind, respect your peace, and create a sacred space where silence becomes your strength. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 6, and I'll continue in this same powerful, calming style. Chapter 6. Let go of the need for control. At the heart of overthinking is fear, and beneath that fear, there's a desperate need for control. You overanalyze conversations because you want to control how others perceive you. You rehearse worst-case scenarios because you want to control outcomes. You replay mistakes because you wish you could control the past. And you obsess over the future because you want to be certain of what's coming. But here's the truth. Control is an illusion. You cannot control what others say. You cannot control every outcome. You cannot control how life unfolds. And the harder you try, the more anxious you become, because your mind is constantly at war with the unpredictable nature of reality. Overthinking is your brain's attempt to hold on, to grip, to tighten, to protect. But the paradox is this: the more you try to control life, the more out of control you actually feel. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become passive or irresponsible. It means you finally understand the difference between what's yours to manage and what is not your burden to carry. Think of your mind like a clenched fist, tight, tense, always bracing. Now imagine slowly releasing that grip, opening the hand, relaxing the tension. That's what letting go feels like. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Because you're no longer wasting energy trying to fix things that were never yours to fix. You're no longer trying to predict every outcome. You're no longer chasing perfection in an imperfect world. Here's the truth. Uncertainty is part of the human experience. And peace comes not from eliminating uncertainty, but from becoming comfortable with it. Start by separating what you can control from what you can't. You can control how you show up each day. You can control your response to difficulty. You can control your choices, your attitude, your growth. But you cannot control the past. You cannot control how people think. You cannot control what life throws at you tomorrow. And once you accept that, your mind starts to relax. The burden lifts. The mental noise softens. Because you're no longer fighting reality. You're flowing with it. Letting go is not giving up. It's saying, I trust myself to handle whatever comes. I don't need to have all the answers right now. I choose faith over fear. You may not be able to control the future, but you can prepare for it with presence. You can build a stronger mind, a calmer heart, a wiser perspective, so that no matter what happens, you're ready. Here's a practice. When you feel yourself spiraling, overanalyzing, predicting, controlling, pause and ask, is this something I can control right now? If not, can I release it with love and trust? Even just saying the words, I let go, can be a powerful mental reset. Say it again and again if you need to. Whisper it to yourself. Write it down. Breathe it out. Because every time you let go of control, you invite peace in. You create space for clarity. You step out of your head and into your life. Remember, your strength is not in controlling everything. Your strength is in your ability to stay centered, no matter what you can't control. Let go, not to give up, but to rise. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 7, and I'll continue in the same powerful and calming style. Chapter 7. Master the art of mental minimalism. Your mind was never meant to hold everything. Yet in today's world, it tries to. You wake up already thinking of 5 things. By midday, your brain is juggling 15 open tabs. What to do next, what to fix, what might go wrong, what someone said, what you forgot to say. Your mind becomes cluttered, heavy, restless. And the worst part? Most of those thoughts aren't even necessary. They're just noise, draining your energy without offering any value. This is where mental minimalism becomes a life-changing shift. It's the conscious choice to simplify your inner world, to carry less, to think less, but more clearly, to focus not on having more thoughts, but on having the right ones. Mental minimalism doesn't mean you shut your mind off. It means you stop letting every thought in. You become selective, intentional. You filter. Just like you wouldn't invite chaos into your home, you stop inviting unnecessary thoughts into your mind. It begins with awareness. Start noticing the thoughts that repeat but serve no purpose. Worries about things you can't control. Regrets you've already learned from. Conversations that ended days ago. Opinions that don't belong to you. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow or just keeping me busy? If it's just noise, let it go. Next, look at how many problems you're trying to solve at once. Most people are mentally carrying 10 issues every single day, some real, most imagined. But the truth is, your mind is most powerful when it focuses on one thing at a time. Stop multitasking your thoughts. Choose one thing to solve, one thing to reflect on, one thing to act on. The rest can wait. Most of it doesn't even matter. Create mental white space the way an artist leaves blank space on a canvas. You don't need to fill every moment with a plan, a judgment, a worry. Silence is not emptiness, it's clarity. In that space, answers appear. In that stillness, solutions rise. But they can't emerge if your mind is too crowded to hear them. Another key is to reduce the input that triggers overthinking. Limit your exposure to content that overwhelms you. Stop absorbing endless opinions, news, or drama. Set boundaries with your phone. Unfollow people who add noise to your life. Your mind reflects what you feed it. If you keep pouring in clutter, you'll keep producing confusion. But if you feed it peace, simplicity, and stillness, you'll create the space for wisdom. Mental minimalism also means letting go of your attachment to every thought. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of them. You don't have to entertain every idea. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it deserves attention. Let it pass. Let it drift. Not everything needs your reaction. Start treating your mind like sacred space. Curate it the way you'd protect your peace. Allow only what uplifts, guides, or strengthens you. Everything else is just clutter disguised as importance. This shift will not happen overnight, but with consistent practice, you'll notice the difference. Your mind will feel lighter, quieter, sharper. You'll think less, but you'll understand more. You'll stop feeling overwhelmed and start feeling focused. Because the goal isn't to think more, it's to think better. That's the power of mental minimalism. Fewer thoughts, greater clarity, less noise, deeper peace. Let go of the excess. Make room for what matters. And in that space, you will find yourself. Chapter 8. Build a mind that knows when to let go. Overthinking is not just about thinking too much, it's about holding on too tightly, to moments that have passed, to people who have left, to words that were said, to outcomes you couldn't control. Your mind becomes a storage room full of mental junk, regrets, fears, expectations, conversations that no longer matter, scenarios that never happened. And the longer you hold on, the heavier it gets. The harder it becomes to breathe, to rest, to live. Letting go is not a natural instinct for most people. The human mind clings to what feels unresolved. It wants closure, it wants answers, it wants certainty. But life rarely gives those things on demand. Sometimes you won't get the apology. You won't know why it ended. You won't understand why things didn't work out. And if your peace depends on having those answers, you'll stay trapped in a loop forever. A powerful mind is not one that holds on to everything. It's one that knows what to release. A powerful mind knows when something has served its purpose, when a thought has run its course, when a memory is no longer helping but hurting. Letting go is not weakness, it's strength in its purest form, because it means you've chosen freedom over attachment. peace over explanation. You don't need to resolve every emotion before you release it. Some pain doesn't need to be solved. It needs to be surrendered. You breathe it in, you honor the lesson, and then you let it drift like a leaf in a stream. The more you practice this, the more your mind begins to heal, because the weight you carry in your head is often the reason your soul feels tired. Letting go also means detaching from the illusion of control. You are not in control of other people's opinions, not in control of the timing of everything, not in control of how others treat you. You are only in control of how much of yourself you give to these thoughts. If someone hurt you, it's done. If you failed, you've learned. If it's gone, it's gone. You don't need to hold it in your mind for it to matter. Not everything that happened needs to stay with you forever. Mental clarity comes not from adding more, but from removing what no longer belongs. Letting go of comparison, letting go of self-blame, letting go of trying to impress everyone, letting go of the belief that you're only worthy when everything is perfect. You are not meant to carry everything. Some things must be set down, or they will break you. Train your mind to ask, is this helping me heal or keeping me hurt? If the thought you're holding is creating more pain than peace, it's time to release it. It may come back. That's okay. Letting go is not a one-time event. It's a practice. Every time the memory returns, you remind yourself, this no longer defines me. Every time the fear speaks, you say, I am not that thought anymore. And slowly, the grip weakens. The volume lowers. The peace rises. The truth is, peace begins not when everything is figured out, but when you stop needing it to be. When you stop wrestling with the past. When you stop waiting for closure. When you stop feeding a fire that has already burned out. Letting go creates space for new thoughts, new beginnings, new levels of calm. It's the mental equivalent of cleaning out your house. You get rid of what you no longer need, and suddenly there's room to breathe. So don't be afraid to let go. Don't be afraid to stop holding what's been hurting you. You are not losing anything important. You are making space for everything you truly need. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is release. Chapter 9. Train yourself to respond, not react. One of the hidden causes of overthinking is reactivity. You react to everything, every word, every look, every delay, every discomfort. Someone ignores your message, you spiral, you make a mistake, you obsess, you receive criticism, you replay it for hours. Life happens, and instead of flowing with it, your mind starts spinning. Not because of what happened, but because of how instantly and automatically you reacted to it. This is the trap. Your brain is conditioned to react fast, but healing and peace require you to respond slow. A reaction is impulsive, emotional, immediate. It's the mental reflex of a mind that hasn't learned to pause. It's survival mode. It's fear. It's your nervous system trying to protect you from pain by jumping into action without thinking clearly. But here's the truth. Most situations in life don't need an instant reaction. What they need is a calm, grounded response. When you train your mind to respond instead of react, everything changes. You gain back power. You stop being a slave to every situation. You stop letting your mood depend on other people's behavior. You stop wasting hours overthinking things that didn't even deserve your attention in the first place. The power lies in the pause, that tiny space between what happens and what you choose to do next. That's where your freedom lives. It might only be a few seconds, but within those seconds, you get to ask, is this worth my energy? What's the most grounded response here? Can I let this go without reacting? It doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you give them space to settle before you let them steer you. Anger, fear, sadness, they all deserve to be felt. But they don't need to control your actions. When you respond instead of react, you stop living at the mercy of your environment. You start living from intention, not impulse. This shift also rewires your nervous system. Over time, the more you practice pausing, the more your brain learns that you're safe, that not everything is a threat, that not every message, delay, or change requires a defense mechanism. Your heart slows down, your breathing deepens, your body learns to relax instead of brace. That's how inner peace becomes your default, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Here's how to practice it daily. Notice your triggers. What usually causes you to overthink or react? Is it being ignored, criticism, uncertainty? Once you're aware of these triggers, you can begin to prepare for them with presence. Use the breath as your anchor. When you feel the urge to react, take one deep breath. Just one. This interrupts the automatic loop and invites clarity. That breath becomes your shield. Label the emotion. Say to yourself, "This is anger," or "This is fear." When you name the emotion, you create distance. You stop being inside the reaction and begin observing it. That observation is the beginning of control. Ask, will this matter in 24 hours, 1 week, 1 year? Often the mind overreacts to moments that are fleeting. Give yourself time to let it settle before you assign importance to it. Choose your response. Sometimes the best response is to say nothing. Sometimes it's to walk away. Sometimes it's to speak firmly but calmly. The point is that you decide. You choose the energy you bring into the situation, not the situation itself. The more you live from response instead of reaction, the lighter your mind becomes. You won't need to mentally revisit everything 10 times. You won't need to dissect every word. You'll act once, with clarity, and move on. No spiraling, no emotional hangover, just peace. Imagine how much simpler life becomes when you're not overanalyzing every message, every tone, every delay. When you're not caught in the storm of emotion every time something uncomfortable happens. When you know you can trust yourself to respond wisely instead of react impulsively. That's the mind you're training for. Calm, aware, disciplined. A mind that doesn't jump, but waits. A mind that doesn't spiral, but settles. A mind that doesn't panic, but breathes. Because when you respond with intention, you create peace where there once was chaos. And that, more than anything, is the true sign of inner strength. Chapter 10. Rewire your mind with new default thoughts. Overthinking isn't just something that happens, it's something that's been trained. Day by day, thought by thought, your brain has been wired to analyze too much, to fear the worst, to revisit the past, and to worry about the future. It's like walking the same mental path so many times that it's become automatic. You don't even realize it's happening anymore. The moment something feels uncertain, your mind races. The moment you make a decision, you second-guess it. The moment someone doesn't respond the way you hoped, your brain fills in the silence with fear. But here's the good news. What was once trained can be untrained. The same way your brain learned to overthink, it can be taught to respond with clarity, calm, and confidence. It's not about trying to eliminate every thought. It's about rewriting the default ones, changing what your mind automatically believes when it encounters stress, uncertainty, or silence. Your default thought is the very first sentence your brain whispers when something goes wrong. For most people, that thought sounds like, "I must have done something wrong. I'm not good enough. They probably don't like me. What if this ends badly?" And once that thought lands, it triggers a cascade of mental chaos. But imagine if you trained your mind to default to something different. I'm okay, even if this feels uncertain. Not everything needs a reaction. I don't need to figure it all out right now. Even if it's uncomfortable, I can handle it. These simple shifts can transform how you experience life, not because life changes, but because your inner dialogue does. You go from spiraling to steady, from anxious to anchored, from doubting everything to trusting yourself moment by moment. The process begins with awareness. You can't change a default you're not conscious of. Start paying attention to the first thought that pops into your mind when you feel triggered. What is it? Is it helpful? Is it rooted in fear or truth? That first thought is the mental blueprint you've unconsciously built over time, and once you see it, you can start replacing it. This is where mental repetition becomes your most powerful tool. The brain doesn't learn through intensity, it learns through consistency. You don't need to tell yourself once and expect it to stick. You need to tell yourself every day, many times a day, especially when it's hardest to believe. Here's how to start. Write down your most common overthinking triggers, things that always send your brain spinning. Then, beside each one, write a new default thought. One that's calm, rational, kind. One that feels like the voice of your best self. Repeat that thought every time the trigger appears. Speak it out loud. Write it down. Whisper it to yourself. Do it until it becomes automatic, until it becomes louder than the old fear. Visualize yourself handling uncertainty well. Close your eyes. Imagine being in a stressful situation, but this time your mind stays grounded. You breathe, you respond, you trust. The more vividly you practice this in your mind, the more your brain begins to accept it as truth. Surround yourself with clarity. Fill your environment with reminders of the thoughts you want to live by. Notes, wallpapers, affirmations. Feed your brain the message you want it to reflect. Be patient with yourself. Rewiring your mind takes time. You might default back to overthinking at first. That's okay. Progress isn't perfection. It's awareness followed by repetition. This practice isn't just about thinking better thoughts. It's about creating a better relationship with your mind. Over time, your brain learns, I don't need to fear silence. I don't need to predict every outcome. I don't need to cling to every thought. You become the one who decides what thoughts stay and what thoughts are dismissed. You reclaim control, not by force, but by gentleness, by consistency, by belief. Your new default becomes, I am safe in the unknown. My worth isn't based on outcomes. I don't chase clarity, I create it by staying calm. And this rewired pattern becomes your new mental foundation. You won't eliminate every overthinking moment, but you'll rise above it faster. It will no longer define you, because your mind will no longer default to fear. It will default to strength, to calm, to trust. And in that new default, you'll finally feel free. Chapter 11. Protect your energy like your life depends on it. One of the most overlooked reasons people overthink is because their mental energy is constantly being drained. Every thought costs energy. Every doubt, every fear, every what-if you entertain pulls from your internal battery. And when your energy is low, your mind becomes weaker, more anxious, more reactive. Just like your phone lags when it's at 2%. Your mind spirals when it's running on empty. That's why protecting your energy is not just a luxury. It's a survival skill. Most people think energy is only physical, food, rest, exercise. But your energy is also deeply emotional and mental. The conversations you engage in, the people you allow access to you, the content you consume, the noise you tolerate. All of it adds up. And when you don't protect your mental space, you leave yourself open to overwhelm, fatigue, and chronic overthinking. Ask yourself this: where is my energy going every day? Who or what is draining me, and what am I doing to recharge? Because if you don't guard your energy, the world will take it without asking. Start with your inputs. Every word you read, every post you scroll, every video you watch leaves an imprint. If your mind is constantly absorbing chaos, comparison, conflict, and fear, how can you expect it to be calm? Start curating your mental diet. Choose peace over noise. Unfollow accounts that make you feel less. Mute conversations that make you anxious. Be ruthless about what you allow into your mental space. Then, look at the people around you. Some people fuel you, others drain you. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your mind. If someone constantly brings drama, negativity, or confusion into your life, that's not just a personality trait. It's a leak in your mental energy. You don't need to cut people off with anger, but you do need to set clear boundaries with love. Protect your mind by protecting your circle. Next, monitor your internal dialogue. Often, the loudest energy drainer is not the world. It's your own voice, the way you speak to yourself, the pressure you put on yourself, the unrealistic standards, the guilt, the shame. That's why you must become your own protector. Every time you catch yourself thinking something harsh, pause and ask, would I say this to someone I love? If not, reframe it. Speak to yourself with care, with compassion, with strength. You also need daily mental recovery time. Just like your body needs sleep, your mind needs quiet. Moments where you are not solving, planning, fixing, or responding. Just being. Even 10 minutes of silence, solitude, or deep breathing can reset your internal system. This isn't laziness. It's strategy. Rest is a form of resistance against a world that wants to keep your mind overloaded. And finally, stop giving energy to what you can't control. Worrying about other people's opinions, replaying the past, imagining worst-case scenarios. These things don't deserve your attention. Your mind becomes what you feed it. If you keep investing energy in things beyond your reach, you'll never have enough left for what truly matters. So create an energy budget for your mind. Ask yourself daily, what's truly worth my attention today? What thoughts can I let go of? How can I refill my mental tank? You don't need to be available to everything. You don't need to carry every emotion. You don't need to solve every problem. The clearer your boundaries, the sharper your mind. The less you allow in, the more peace you build within. Protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. Your clarity depends on it. Your emotional balance depends on it. Your ability to live without overthinking depends on it. A mind full of leaks will always feel heavy, but a mind that is protected, respected, and cared for, that mind is powerful, grounded, and finally, free. Chapter 12. Teach your mind to live without constant certainty. The mind craves certainty like the body craves oxygen. It wants to know. It wants to predict. It wants to feel safe by controlling what's coming next. This is natural. It's how your brain evolved to protect you from danger. But in today's world, that same craving becomes a trap, because life doesn't come with guarantees. The more you demand certainty, the more your mind spins. You begin to overanalyze every detail, obsess over every possible outcome, replay every choice, and rehearse every scenario, not to grow, but to protect yourself from the unknown. But here's the truth. You can't overthink your way into safety. You can't think hard enough to avoid all pain. You can't prepare enough to ensure life goes exactly as planned. You can't predict every word someone will say or every twist the future might take. The more you chase certainty, the more fear you actually create, because the unknown becomes your enemy instead of your teacher. Overthinking is the mind's way of trying to create false comfort. You tell yourself, if I think about this enough, I'll feel ready. But you never do. Instead of clarity, you feel confusion. Instead of control, you feel more fragile. That's because the mind wasn't built to hold every outcome. It was built to act, to learn, and to adapt as life unfolds, not to rehearse every possibility endlessly. The real freedom begins when you train your mind to be okay without constant certainty, to sit in the unknown without panic, to walk forward even when the entire path isn't visible yet. to trust your steps instead of fearing every shadow ahead. Start by reminding yourself, uncertainty is not danger, it's space. Space for new growth, space for better outcomes than you imagined, space for the unexpected to surprise you in good ways too. Just because you don't know doesn't mean something bad is coming. Your brain is wired to fill empty space with worst-case thinking, but that's a habit, not a truth. You must replace that habit with a new belief. I don't need to know everything to move forward. I trust myself to handle whatever happens. Uncertainty is where my courage grows. Every time you catch your mind trying to control or predict, pause. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? Often, it's not the situation. It's the discomfort of not knowing. But the more you practice sitting with that discomfort without reacting, the more strength you build. You teach your mind that it's okay to feel unsure, that you don't need every answer today, that you can breathe and move forward anyway. Let go of the belief that everything must be figured out right now. Life unfolds in seasons, not seconds. What's unclear today may become obvious tomorrow. What feels uncertain now may lead to a breakthrough later. But you won't find peace by trying to force certainty. You find peace by embracing the flow. Letting go of the need to always know does not make you irresponsible. It makes you wise. It makes you humble. It makes you strong. It means you understand that no matter how much you prepare, life will still surprise you. And when it does, you'll adapt. You'll grow. You'll find your way. You also begin to reconnect with presence. Because when you're not mentally 5 steps ahead, worrying about every possibility, you return to the now, the only moment you can actually control. You breathe deeper. You notice more. You stop missing life because you were too busy trying to control it. Start with small moments. When a message goes unanswered, don't assume the worst. When a decision feels uncertain, don't obsess. Choose and trust yourself to adjust. When plans change, remind yourself that flexibility is power. Each time you respond to uncertainty with trust instead of fear, you rewire your mind for resilience. You may never eliminate your desire for certainty completely, but you can learn to live wisely without depending on it. To walk through life with your head up, even when you don't know what's around the corner. To act with confidence, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. To rest in the unknown, knowing that uncertainty is not a threat. It's the birthplace of every transformation. Let go of the need to always know. And watch how your mind begins to settle. Not because the world became clearer, but because you did. Chapter 13. Reconnect with reality through the power of direct experience. Overthinking is not just a mental habit, it's a form of disconnection. You disconnect from the present moment. You disconnect from your body. You disconnect from reality itself. Instead of living your life, you start to think about your life. You begin to observe everything through the filter of analysis. What did that mean? Should I have said more? What if something goes wrong? What if I regret this? Your thoughts become a second layer over reality, blurring it, warping it, exhausting you. But reality is never as heavy as the story we tell about it. It's the story that drains you. The loop of assumptions, interpretations, imagined consequences. The mind creates a world inside your head, and you begin to live there instead of here. This is why you must train yourself to reconnect with reality, not the imagined one, but the direct, raw, unfiltered experience of the moment you're in. Because when you come back to reality, overthinking loses its grip. Your thoughts may say, they're ignoring me. Reality says, a message hasn't been answered. Your mind says, I always mess things up. Reality says, you made one mistake, and you can learn from it. Your anxiety says, something terrible will happen. Reality says, you are here, breathing, safe, right now. Direct experience is what happens when you drop the mental commentary and simply observe the world through your senses. You stop thinking about the moment and you enter it fully. You feel the texture of your breath. You hear the hum of the environment. You sense your feet on the ground. You allow yourself to be present with what is, instead of what your thoughts are narrating. This is the essence of mindfulness, not forcing yourself to be calm, but simply being with what's real, not what's feared, not what's remembered, not what's imagined, just what's here, now. And the more you practice this, the more your mind begins to settle. Why? Because the present moment is never as overwhelming as the storm inside your head. The present moment is digestible, containable, simple. You don't need to solve your whole life. You only need to return to what's real. Start this practice in small ways. When you're eating, eat. Don't scroll. Don't replay a conversation. Don't rush. Just taste. Chew. Be there. When you walk, feel your steps. Don't plan your future or relive your past with every step. Just move. Be with your body. When you're with someone, listen with your full attention. Not through the filter of what they might think of you or what you should say next, but with presence, curiosity, and honesty. When your mind begins to spin, stop and name what you see. Name what you hear. Touch something nearby. Feel your breath. Ask yourself, what is real in this moment? That question pulls you back. That question saves you from drowning in your thoughts. The truth is, most overthinking comes from living too much in the imaginary. You replay old stories. You anticipate problems that don't exist. You try to think your way to safety. But safety is not a thought. It's a state of being. And that state begins by coming back to what your senses know to be true. This is how you build emotional resilience, not by avoiding life, but by experiencing it fully. Not by controlling every possibility, but by meeting each moment as it is. Even discomfort becomes manageable when you're fully present. Even sadness feels lighter when you don't attach extra stories to it. The moment you stop running from your experience and start feeling it directly, your nervous system begins to relax. You build trust, not by knowing every answer, but by showing yourself you can stay with what's real. Overthinking is disconnection. Presence is reconnection. And your power returns the moment you step out of your head and into your life. So pause, breathe, come back, not to the story, not to the fear, but to what's here, right now. Because this moment, this reality, is the only place peace has ever lived. Chapter 14. Understand that not all questions need answers. The mind, by design, seeks resolution. It craves understanding, closure, and explanation. And while this drive can be useful in many parts of life, solving problems, learning, growing, it becomes a trap when applied to emotional experiences, relationships, and moments of uncertainty. Because not every question your mind asks has an answer, and not every answer your mind finds will bring peace. Overthinkers live in constant interrogation mode. Why did they do that? What did they mean by that message? Should I have said something different? What if I missed an opportunity? Why do I always feel like this? And it doesn't stop. Even after hours of analysis, the answer never feels satisfying. Because the mind isn't just seeking truth, it's seeking control. It believes that if it can just understand everything, it will finally feel safe. But life doesn't always give you that luxury. People will walk away without explanation. Things will happen that don't make logical sense. You'll feel emotions you don't fully understand. And the more you try to make sense of it all, the more exhausted and stuck you become. This is one of the hardest truths you must accept if you want to stop overthinking. Some questions are traps disguised as insight. You think you're solving something, but you're not. You're circling, you're replaying. You're hoping that one more thought, one more angle, one more theory will make everything click. But clarity is not always something you find. It's something you choose. You choose to let some questions remain unanswered. You choose to stop chasing closure from people who can't or won't give it. You choose to sit in the discomfort of the unknown without demanding that it explain itself. This is the maturity of a disciplined mind. Not that it solves everything, but that it knows what to stop solving. It takes immense inner strength to say, I may never fully know why that happened, and I'm okay with that. I don't need their apology to heal. I don't need to know the future to take my next step. This doesn't mean you ignore your emotions or shut down your curiosity. It means you learn to differentiate between what is useful and what is mentally draining. If a question leads you to clarity, growth, or meaningful action, explore it. But if a question leads you to confusion, paralysis, or emotional exhaustion, release it. You don't owe your mind an answer to everything it asks. Because not every why is meant to be understood. Some whys are meant to be outgrown. It's also important to recognize that your brain tends to ask the wrong questions when it's anxious or emotionally overwhelmed. Instead of asking, what's one thing I can do right now? What does my body need to feel safe in this moment? What's the next small step forward? Your mind often spirals with, what if this never gets better? Why does this always happen to me? What if I fail again? These aren't questions. They're mental traps. They're not seeking an answer. They're reinforcing fear. They're open loops that never close. And every time you indulge them, you sink deeper into the spiral. That's why training your mind to ask better questions is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Questions that bring clarity. Questions that lead to presence. Questions that move you forward. For example, instead of, why did they hurt me? Try, what did I learn about my boundaries from this experience? Instead of, what if I make the wrong choice? Try, what's the best choice I can make with what I know now? Instead of, why do I always feel anxious? Try, what are my triggers and how can I respond to them with compassion? The quality of your questions determines the quality of your mental life. If your questions are rooted in fear, they will keep you stuck. But if they're rooted in curiosity, compassion, and presence, they will open new pathways. This is how you shift from a restless mind to a wise one. You accept that some questions will never be answered. You stop digging deeper when it's only making the wound worse. You stop forcing explanations when silence would bring more peace. And you begin to trust that even in the absence of answers, you are still growing. Because healing doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes healing comes with surrender, with the willingness to sit in the fog and keep walking anyway. With the trust that the path will make sense in time, even if it doesn't right now. This practice of letting go of needing to know everything softens your entire life. It brings ease to your breath. It releases tension from your chest. It allows your nervous system to settle. Because the mind is no longer at war with mystery, it becomes an ally of the unknown. And that is where peace truly begins. You may still wonder sometimes. You may still want answers. That's human. But you will no longer be a prisoner to your mind's every question. You'll have the strength to say, I don't need to know everything to live with purpose. I don't need certainty to feel grounded. I don't need every answer to feel whole. And when you live like that, calm, curious, and free from the need to solve everything, you discover a new kind of wisdom. A quiet, powerful wisdom that says, I choose peace over overthinking. I choose trust over control. I choose to keep living, even without all the answers. And that choice, made again and again, will transform your entire life. Chapter 15. Detach from the outcome. Reclaim your power. One of the most powerful reasons overthinking takes root is because we've attached our peace to outcomes we can't control. We tell ourselves, I'll be okay if it turns out the way I want. We become obsessed with how things unfold, with whether or not we succeed, with whether people approve, with whether we win or lose, fail or thrive, get rejected or accepted. This attachment creates a dependency, and that dependency breeds anxiety. When your peace depends on everything going your way, your mind begins to obsess. You plan everything to perfection. You rehearse every detail in your head. You imagine every scenario, trying to force a specific result. But here's the problem. You can't fully control the outcome of anything. You can prepare, you can try, you can give your absolute best. But people still leave. Plans still change. Life still shifts in ways you can't predict. And if you've attached your emotional stability to what should happen, you crumble when it doesn't. This is why detachment is so vital, not because you don't care about the outcome, but because you refuse to be controlled by it. Detachment doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean you stop dreaming or working hard. It means you focus on what you can control, your effort, your values, your discipline, your energy, and you let go of what's beyond that. You begin to say to yourself, I will give my best, but I do not need a perfect result to feel at peace. I will show up fully, but I will not allow this outcome to define my worth. This shift is incredibly liberating, because once you detach from the result, you reclaim your power in the present moment. You stop obsessing about tomorrow. You stop reliving yesterday. You start living now, calmly, clearly, with purpose. When you cling too tightly to how things must go, you lose flexibility. And when you lose flexibility, your mind becomes rigid, unable to adapt, unable to see new opportunities, unable to rest. But when you detach, you make space for flow, for possibility, for something better than you even imagined. You may have been taught that detachment means weakness, that it means indifference, that you should always be all in, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, no matter the cost. But that's not strength, that's dependence. Real strength is when you can love, give, try, and commit fully, and still be okay if it doesn't turn out the way you hoped. It's when you can walk away with your head high, knowing you didn't lose, you learned. It's when you can feel disappointment without letting it turn into self-hatred. It's when you can say, this hurt, but it didn't destroy me. I'm still me. I'm still whole. This mindset of emotional detachment helps you see life as it really is, not as something you can force to obey you, but something you dance with. Sometimes it leads, sometimes you do, but always the power lies in your presence, not your control. Detachment also protects you from over-personalizing everything. Someone doesn't text back. It must mean something about you. The opportunity didn't work out. You must not be good enough. You failed once. You must be a failure. But most of the time, outcomes reflect a complex mix of timing, circumstances, and external variables, not your worth. When you're attached, you blur this truth. You make every result about you. And when that happens, your self-esteem becomes fragile. One rejection shatters you. One failure sends you into weeks of mental spiraling. But when you detach, you separate effort from identity. You can fail and still feel powerful. You can lose and still feel valuable. You can be rejected and still feel worthy. Why? Because you've taken your worth out of the outcome and placed it back into your hands. Here's how to begin practicing detachment in your everyday life. Set your intention, not your expectation. Before taking action, ask yourself, what is my intention here? Focus on your values, honesty, growth, service, integrity, not on the result. When you act from intention, success is already happening in the doing. Remind yourself, outcomes don't define identity. Write it down. Repeat it daily. My worth is not based on results. I am valuable because I exist, not because I achieve. Visualize releasing the outcome. After putting in your effort, take a moment, close your eyes. Imagine yourself letting the result go like a balloon in the sky. Feel the lightness. Feel the freedom. Let the universe or life do its part. Celebrate the effort, not just the reward. After any event, win or lose, ask, did I show up fully? Did I act with integrity? Did I grow? Let these become your new metrics for success. Return to the present moment. When you notice your mind drifting to the outcome, gently bring it back to now, to your breath, to your body, to your surroundings. This moment is where your power lives, not in some imagined future. The more you detach, the more powerful your presence becomes. You stop chasing what you can't control. You stop fearing failure. You stop trying to micromanage life. And in that space, you rise. You create with freedom. You love without fear. You try without pressure. You begin to live, not for the outcome, but for the experience. And that is the secret. When you stop needing everything to turn out perfectly, when you stop attaching your peace to results, when you stop measuring your worth by what works or what doesn't, you stop overthinking and you start truly living. Because peace was never about getting everything right. It was about finally realizing that you're already whole, regardless of how things turn out. Overthinking is not who you are. It's simply a habit your mind has learned, a survival pattern, a mental reflex. You weren't born overthinking. You were born present, curious, aware. But somewhere along the way, your mind began to believe that more thinking meant more control. That if you just analyzed enough, worried enough, predicted enough, you could avoid pain. But instead of avoiding pain, you multiplied it. You suffered twice, first in your thoughts, then in your reality. But here's the truth that brings healing. You can unlearn the noise. You can rewire the reflex. You can train your mind to become an ally, not an enemy. Peace is not something you stumble upon by accident. It's something you build through daily intention. You've now learned how to recognize the mental loop, how to anchor yourself in the present, how to act instead of spiral, how to question your thoughts instead of yourself, and how to let go of the need for perfect control. You've discovered the power of setting boundaries, reclaiming your energy, embracing uncertainty, and reconnecting with what is real, not what is imagined. And most importantly, you've learned that stillness is a skill. Not everyone has it, but you can. Not everyone protects it, but you will. You don't need to think your way to peace. You need to return to it, one breath at a time. One decision at a time, one clear, grounded moment at a time. So the next time your mind starts spinning, remember this. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are simply being invited again to come back. Back to this breath, back to this step, back to you. And here, in the quiet, there is no problem to fix, no future to fear, no past to relive. There is only presence. And in presence, you are already free.